any links or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Now, I have not spoken publicly during our investigation. I'm speaking out today because our investigation is complete. The Attorney General has made the report on our investigation largely public. We are formally closing the special counsel's office, and as well, I'm resigning from the Department of Justice to return to private life. I'll make a few remarks about the results of our work. But beyond these few remarks, it is important that the office's written work speak for itself. Let me begin where the appointment order begins, and that is interference in the 2016 presidential election. As alleged by the grand jury in an indictment, Russian intelligence officers who were part of the Russian military launched a concerted attack on our political system. The indictment alleges that they used sophisticated cyber techniques to hack into computers and networks used by the Clinton campaign. They stole private information and then released that information through fake online identities and through the organization WikiLeaks. The releases were designed and timed to interfere with our election and to damage a presidential candidate. And at the same time, as the grand jury alleged in a separate indictment, a private Russian entity engaged in a social media operation where Russian citizens posed as Americans in order to influence an election. These indictments contain allegations, and we are not commenting on the guilt or the innocence of any specific defendant. Every defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. The indictments allege, and the other activities in our report describe, efforts to interfere in our political system. They needed to be investigated and understood, and that is among the reasons why the Department of Justice established our office. That is also a reason we investigated efforts to obstruct the investigation. The matters we investigated were of paramount importance. It was critical for us to obtain full and accurate information from every person we questioned. When a subject of an investigation obstructs that investigation or lies to investigators, it strikes at the core of the government's effort to find the truth and hold wrongdoers accountable. Let me say a word about the report. The report has two parts, addressing the two main issues we were asked to investigate. The first volume of the report details numerous efforts emanating from Russia to influence the election. This volume includes a discussion of the Trump campaign's response to this activity, as well as our conclusion that there was insufficient evidence to charge a broader conspiracy. And in the second volume, the report describes the results and analysis of our obstruction of justice investigation involving the president. The order appointing me special counsel authorized us to investigate actions that could obstruct the investigation. And we conducted that investigation, and we kept the office of the acting Attorney General apprised of the progress of our work. And as set forth in the report, after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. We did not, however, make a determination as to whether the president did commit a crime. The introduction to the Volume 2 of our report explains that decision. It explains that under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. That is unconstitutional. Even if the charge is kept under seal and hidden from public view, that too is prohibited. The special counsel's office is part of the Department of Justice, and by regulation, it was bound by that department policy. Charging the president with a crime was therefore not an option we could consider. The department's written opinion explaining the policy makes several important points. that further informed our handling of the obstruction investigation. Those points are summarized in our report, and I will describe two of them for you. First, the opinion explicitly permits the investigation of a sitting president because it is important to preserve evidence while memories are fresh and documents available. Among other things, that evidence could be used if there were co-conspirators who could be charged now. And second, the opinion says that the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing. And beyond department policy, we were guided by principles of fairness. It would be unfair to potentially accuse somebody of a crime when there can be no court resolution of the actual charge. So that was Justice Department policy. Those were the principles under which we operated, and from them we concluded that we would not reach a determination one way or the other about whether the president committed a crime. That is the office's final position, and we will not comment on any other conclusions or hypotheticals about the president. We conducted an independent criminal investigation and reported the results to the Attorney General, as required by department regulations. The Attorney General then concluded that it was appropriate to provide our report to Congress and to the American people. At one point in time, I requested that certain portions of the report be released. The Attorney General preferred to make the entire report public all at once, and we appreciate that the Attorney General made the report largely public, and I certainly do not question the Attorney General's good faith in that decision. Now, I hope and expect this to be the only time that I will speak to you in this manner. I am making that decision myself. No one has told me whether I can or should testify or speak further about this matter. There has been discussion about an appearance before Congress. Any testimony from this office would not go beyond our report. It contains our findings and analysis and the reasons for the decisions we made. We chose those words carefully, and the work speaks for itself. And the report is my testimony. I would not provide information beyond that which is already public in any appearance before Congress. In addition, access to our underlying work product is being decided in a process that does not involve our office. So beyond what I've said here today and what is contained in our written work, I do not believe it is appropriate for me to speak further about the investigation or to comment on the actions of the Justice Department or Congress. And it's for that reason I will not be taking questions today as well. Now, before I step away, I want to thank the attorneys, the FBI agents, the analysts, the professional staff who helped us conduct this investigation in a fair and independent manner. These individuals, who spent nearly 2 years with the Special Counsel's office, were of the highest integrity. And I will close by reiterating the central allegation of our indictments, that there were multiple, systematic efforts to interfere in our election. And that allegation deserves the attention of every American. Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Sir, if you're subpoenaed, will you be full time? No question.
You were listening to former Special Counsel Robert Mueller as he made his first public statement since a 2-year investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, and since again also the release of the report that took 2 years again to release and was forwarded on to the Attorney General's office. In part, some of the comments we heard here is we heard Robert Mueller break down essentially the 2 volumes that were investigated, whether or not there was interference, and also whether or not there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. And the second part here on whether or not there was obstruction of justice specifically. He has said that he is resigning now from the Department of Justice. They have formally closed the special counsel's office as well. Some other key points made here, saying, of course, that there was a determination in terms of whether or not there was collusion, that they said there was not, but whether or not there was obstruction of justice, they did not have a clear conclusion on that respect. Some interesting language being used also by the former special counsel. Of course, the CBC's Lindsay Duncombe was listening along with us. Some really interesting points here that we learned from Bob Mueller, and interesting too that he's essentially saying one of the questions you said you were looking out for is whether or not he will go ahead for the congressional testimony, and him saying here essentially that his report speaks for itself. He won't be speaking again. What stood out to you?
That is the big headline, that Robert Mueller does not have an intention of appearing before Congress, and that if he did, he would not be able to answer anything more than what was in the report. The written word, as he said, speaks for itself. But the question that he talked about there in terms of the determination made on obstruction of justice is one of the things that members of Congress really wanted to talk to him about. And he said that what is in the report, that it is not possible to charge a sitting president under Justice Department rules, is exactly all that he would say if he were to appear in front of Congress. The flip side of that, though, is that he also said that there exists another process by which to deal with potential criminality by a sitting process. And that process, although he didn't say it explicitly, is an impeachment process in Congress. So many members of Congress will be disappointed that they will not have the opportunity, at least according to the way that the special counsel is presenting it right now, to get more specifics about the president's behavior in those 10 instances that could be looked at as obstruction of justice, Arthi.
All right. Thank you for this, Lindsay. That is the CBC's Lindsay Duncombe in Washington. All right, now to other breaking news story today out of Ottawa. Developments in the affair that sparked a political crisis in the Trudeau government. The SNC-Lavalin case is going to trial. Now, the explosive chain of events has already seen two high-profile ministers quit the cabinet. Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott were then expelled from the Liberal caucus. The political fallout is still being felt. This week, they announced they'll run as independents in the next federal election. The question that started it all was whether SNC-Lavalin should face trial on corruption charges. The Attorney General could have decided, but today it was up to a judge in Quebec. So this is breaking news actually out of Quebec, not out of Ottawa, but of course implications will be felt there. The CBC's David Seglins is joining us now, and he's been following the story from the beginning. Take us through the decision that was made.
So, Arthi, this